Hello again, friends. And you are our friends, or at least some of our friends. And welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here from whatever room you are sitting in your house, or perhaps you are doing the stupid thing and going back into society without a mask on right now. Who knows? But I am your host, the great Brian Last, and we're going to be answering your questions. And the man, well, I'll be asking your questions. The man who'll be answering them, of course, Mr. Warmth, the exalted one of the cult of Cornette, a friend of babies everywhere, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Many of you may be our friends, but some of you are our hated arch rivals and enemies. I hate, that's what one of the YouTube clips from this program is going to be, Jim Cornette on hating babies. Oh, God. I'll tell you, and I want to thank everybody who doesn't like me this past week, because for the last month now, and I know people got it hard all over the world, but for the last month now, I've been covered up with shit to do, and it's been very stressful mentally, and trying to get everything accomplished and all the things in my personal and private life and professional life and running this empire, this media empire I got going on. But the last couple of days has refreshed my faith in humanity that I could get a tickle at these people that have been cussing me and screaming and hopping up and down over the last couple of days from the Jim Cornette experience that they actually, truth be known, they didn't listen to. They just took the one screenshot that some wise ass put out. But, well, they, like we say, they may have listened to it, but they wouldn't have got it. But yeah, so that Jim Cornette hates babies, and I love it. I put out a tweet. I said, it's incredible that the teenage girls that used to write and send me threats and hate mail and death threats for what I said about Ricky and Robert the Rock and Roll Express have now apparently grown up into middle-aged men who cry over pregnancies and royal weddings. Oh, my God. At the top of the program, we must acknowledge some of you people out there. Brian, you've seen them. I expected women to get mad at me because I was knocking pregnancy in any way, shape, or form, even though I wasn't against the act, just the timing. And actually, I'm against the act if it involves me, but if somebody else wants to do it, that's fine. But I was astonished at the timing. And also then they said, well, he's mad because Becky Lynch is pregnant. No, I'm not mad once again. I'm astonished at the timing. But I expected to get a lot of women upset. But, Brian, you've seen these people out there. There's two types. There's purportedly both grown adult men. Some of them have their favorite girl wrestler's picture as their profile thing on Twitter. You've seen these, right?
I've seen those, yes.
And they mention their favorite girl wrestler's name at least 2 or 3 times in their profile to go along with that picture. But they're purportedly grown adult men. And they're like, oh, you're so horrible. How dare you? A woman could choose her right. Oh, Becky's our hero. Hey, baby. And then there are apparently a grown adult men who have pictures of grown adult men on their profiles. I can't verify these people. They're not blue check marked, so I don't know if they're real. And they sound the same way. Oh, yeah, you hate babies, and you're so horrible. Before we delve into this in any depth, let me illustrate the chart for everybody right now. If you are a grown adult male and your wife or girlfriend or significant other gets pregnant and is going to have a baby, then yes, that is a call to be emotional. And I can see if you're a grown adult male and your brother or your cousin or some member of your family's either gets pregnant or their girlfriend or significant other gets pregnant, there's some call for emotion. Or some personal, close, longtime friend of yours. When you get emotional over movie stars that you have never met and celebrities that you've never met or if you have met them, it was in a line to get their autograph at an event, and you get emotional over them getting pregnant, chances are you get your feelings hurt easily, and you're a very nice person. And if you're a grown adult man and you get hopping up and down mad enough to shriek and cry and cuss people on Twitter and take time out of your day to give 2 flying French fried titty fucks because one celebrity that you have never met criticized another celebrity that you've never met for doing any fucking thing, getting pregnant or blowing a goat on Broadway, you're a big fucking pussy. I think have we got the proper categories there straight at the top of this discussion, Brian? Do you think, where we put everybody in their proper pigeonhole? Would you have elongated those parameters, or?
Well, let's not say we, but you have certainly explained your chart right there.
But I mean, would you change any of those parameters, or?
I do think people may be a bit overly sensitive. I said it on the show. I don't necessarily agree with your take on Becky Lynch getting pregnant and the wonderful celebration that Becky and Seth Rollins will be having for the next 9 months and beyond. However, there are some people, I don't know, it's almost like you attack a member of their family when you say these things.
Oh God, I know, and it's at least it gives me some entertainment. But here's the thing. No, I'm not against babies. This is why this is going to be titled Hating Babies. I don't hate babies. I don't hate the concept of babies. I don't hate any babies in particular. And I don't even hate children. I'm in favor of children as long as they're other people's. And if they're other people's children, if they're not well-behaved, as long as you keep them away from me. Well-behaved children in limited doses are fine with me, but I don't begrudge anyone the opportunity to have these children or whatever the fuck. And I'm not against, as I said, the concept of babies or pregnancy, and especially practicing for pregnancy. I feel people should stay in tip-top shape there. What I was remarking on is the astonishing timing that you put all this work and all these years of your life into becoming the biggest star in the world at what you do, which is this case, she was, as we acknowledged, the biggest box office attraction as a female in the wrestling industry. And actually, besides Brock Lesnar, because of the dearth of candidates on the male side, she may have been, number 2. I'm sure she sells more merchandise than Brock, but he's the king of fucking the big show. But you know what I'm saying. Biggest star in her field. Most successful. And most people don't ever get a chance to do that. And once you give it up, especially purposely, you don't always, and sometimes rarely, ever get it back. So from a standpoint of that, and and I coined the phrase $1 million, because nobody's ever said that before, but and then I actually realized I was underplaying that. I said the millions of dollars that you're making in the prime of your career, unless you were pissed off at the business and just said, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. Why would you allow such thing to happen? They're professional athletes. One would think if they eat right and train right and take all the right supplements, they can take the right fucking obstacles as well to prevent these things from happening if they're paying attention. But that was what I was astonished about, was that anybody would do that at this particular point in time and give up income like that, and et cetera, and that spot and that opportunity. I likened it to the Olympics, except it's not, because that's an amateur deal, but you train for the Olympics. You're the fucking greatest gymnast, or, you're going to gold medal in the uneven parallel bars or whatever the fuck. And then all of a sudden, boom. And then 4 years later, sometimes these chances don't come around again. But it's not like the Olympics, because you're also getting paid millions of dollars. So that's what I was astonished about at the timing. I'm not mad at Becky and Seth, because I'm not going to get a percentage of their income or the WWE income. I was astonished at the timing. However, what I did start getting mad about in the interim, when people called it to my attention, Brian, she's still got a guaranteed contract. She's still going to get paid.
You know, I was going to ask you about that, about the idea of...
I was just thinking in the old days, you don't go to work, you don't get paid. I understand you getting fucking injured and having guaranteed income. That's great because that injured in the line of wounded on the battlefield in the line of duty. But now you've just taken yourself out of the game. But she's still going to make money. So now Vince should be the one whose head is blowing up, one would think.
Or they're still going to be able to merchandise her. I was going to ask you how that works. Do you still get your downside guarantee? And also, if you are out for pregnancy and then I guess maternity leave after that, do they just tack that time onto your contract, do you think?
I don't know, because I don't know how these people write these contracts these days unless they're out on the internet as part of a lawsuit, which this might end up that way. Vince is suing the fucking guy he's going to pay $20 million to, and that guy didn't call in pregnant. But here's the thing. From a business standpoint, you have, let's say, Brian Last, you as a talent have gone to Vince McMahon and you've agreed on the money and the terms for your contract. You're going to wrestle for him for 3 years. He's going to pay you X amount of dollars, all the deals, all the particulars. And then, and I'm not saying this is the time of Becky Lynch's contract. I'm just saying halfway into it, suddenly you call him, Vince, I can't come wrestle for you anymore. Why? Because I got pregnant. Didn't we discuss that you were going to wrestle for me for 3 years? I was going to pay you all this money and do this, and I've done my shit. But now you can't wrestle for me. And this is an optional decision. You didn't break your leg. I'm for maternity leave for a normal job because whether you're a woman CEO of the biggest company in the world, you can still run your company when you're pregnant, or you're the lowliest file clerk in the mailroom. Not only can you do your job most of the time when you're pregnant, but also you can give your employers months and months of notice of when you would be unavailable, and you're not irreplaceable because you're not a movie star that is irreplaceable in a chain of action films, or you're not a world-class athlete, or you're not the best in the world at what you do, just being taken out of the game. So yes, then a company that has this female employee should then let them go off and have the baby and give them time to fucking get well and then come back. Because they're not irreplaceable, and they gave notice way ahead of time. And there was no, in those jobs that you have agreed to, it doesn't require you to get picked up and slammed down to the ground over and over. That's completely different than this. What if NFL football players, $20 million a year, pal, for 3 years, you're going to play for the Dallas Cowboys. A year and a half in, he said, well, I'm pregnant, I can't play. What do you still want your $20 million a year? I did that. There's a gray area there. If you've made a commitment to do something for somebody, then you actually should honor that commitment and try not to do anything that would prevent you from doing so, as long as they're holding up their end of the deal. And now I'm thinking, no wonder Vince looks so fucking ancient these days. His top male star is on the shelf for whoever knows how long, and he's not even going to mention his name on television. And now his top woman takes a fucking walk. Fuck, that would have killed a lesser man.
Yeah, well, let's not have sympathy for Vince on this. He's treated his talent like cattle forever.
Oh, well, yeah, he still has treated his talent like shit, but I'm just saying, no wonder, from his viewpoint, no wonder he's looking so fucking peaked lately. He's like, what the fuck? Can you imagine if Hulk Hogan and fucking the Ultimate Warrior would have walked out at the same time in 1989 or whatever? I don't know. But anyway.
Well, one of the reasons Hogan was off in 88, it was two things. It was no holds barred, and also that Linda was about to give birth for the first time, and Hogan wanted to be with her.
Well, boy, and look how that worked out for everybody. Yeah. Look how that worked out for everybody.
Oh, come on.
Good Lord. Anyway,
maybe not the best comparison.
I'd go back and rethink that one. But anyway, so no, I don't hate babies. Yes, I'm for maternity leave for female employees of corporations that don't offer such thing. They do in the rest of the world, because that's obviously a whole completely different situation. But in this instance, holy fuck. I was astonished at the timing on her part to give up what you would have worked your adult life for at the point where you've gotten it, and you can still have it for another few years. You might not get it back. But now from Vince's standpoint, or from any wrestling promoter or any major sports, okay. Well, UFC is not the same thing, because they might fight every year and a half anyway, for fuck's sake. But, But anyway, as far as the average fucking jack off on Twitter is concerned, nothing has changed in the teeny bopper Rock and Roll Express fans of 1986 and these outraged, very, very fucking, what's the word I'm searching for? Easily hurt, butthurt, or whatever they call it. Fucking twats on Twitter these days that, Becky's my favorite. Don't you dare say. Oh, and Dana Brooke was another one. They came to Dana Brooke's defense.
Yeah, let me just jump in first and say I'm very happy for Becky and Seth, and I hope they have a wonderful pregnancy and a delightful little bouncing baby at the end.
Well, yes, but no, now not bouncing. If it was a bouncing baby, it'd be taking bumps. Then she could have kept on working. The baby'd be bouncing. Anyway, but no, let me put a period on that also. I'm not against babies. I'm astonished at this timing, and I am highly entertained by all the people who legitimately threaten me with physical violence and hate me and want me to die, because that's cheered me up over the past couple of days, and I appreciate you guys doing that from the bottom of my heart. Because it renews my faith in that there's no reason why anybody has to be smart to the wrestling business. Otherwise, we beat them over the head with it. Because if they will get this fired up about shit like this, then I could have these people fucking bringing in goddamn automatic weapons and fucking, airborne pathogens to try to fucking. Now, they'd probably send me anthrax in the mail these days instead of boogers if I was still on TV every week.
Well, on the topic of people you've upset on Twitter, it's not just the wrestling fans. You've upset WWE performer Dana Brooke. I'll read you this tweet because I have it in front of me. One of the listeners, apparently, I won't say his name so he doesn't get attacked further, because Lance Storm kind of gave it to him after this. He wrote, on a recent pod, Jim Cornette said Dana Brooke looks like her face caught on fire and someone put it out with an axe. Even Brian was caught off guard. I'm surprised there hasn't been much said about it. And I guess Dana Brooke was doing a vanity search and saw this, so she retweeted.
Now, wait, what a vanity?
Well, she wasn't tagged in it. It wasn't like they put like at, Dana Brooke. So she must have done a search or someone brought this to her attention. Usually a vanity search, something the Young Bucks are famous for, is where you go on Twitter and you search for anything using your name, but you're not necessarily tagged in. So you can see what other people
what the fuck? Who would have time? By the time I'm sick of reading all the shit I'm tagged in, it sometimes doesn't even pertain to me. Go ahead, nevertheless.
Well, Dana Brooke retweeted that tweet from one of the listeners and replied, at the Jim Cornette. You see, she tagged you as opposed to you having to do a vanity search.
Well, I saw that. I saw that because my name was in there.
At the Jim Cornette, how about you stop hiding behind a keyboard and come say it to my face? Because I doubt you would when you see me in person, Mark. How about stop spreading hate and spread positivity? And I said Mark like that because Mark was all in caps with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Ks.
Oh, God. That was just an offhand remark that because I've noticed as we were reviewing the show that she, looks like she's had plastic surgery done with a power drill and a goddamn putty spatula. But and somebody sent me a picture of her and she was a pretty girl one time back in the long ago in the before time, before apparently she had this fucking horrible car accident, rear-on collision with a goddamn ugly truck and hit every bumper on the way down. But for one thing, it's so cute when the kids, the little baby deer that get their legs and they can't hardly stand up yet and they're kind of awkward, but they're trying to use the adult language and talk like the big boys, and they say Mark even though they don't know what it means. It's cute. And also, Jesus H. Christ, please don't try to get in a contest with me, young lady, because not only would I have to watch some of your shit to come up with some ways to knock you personally, and that I don't have time for, but secondly, say it to your face. The fucking appearance of your face is the reason why I commented to begin with. Why would I want to fucking look at it while I was speaking to you if I don't have to? So anyway,
I don't know how to follow that at all.
I don't know what to say. I'm I don't hate babies, but I am anti-plastic surgery when it's not necessary because it's gross. It grosses me out. Have you seen this shit on the doctor channel, the medical channel?
I don't have to see it on the doctor's channel. I see it all the time on professional wrestling, WWE, unfortunately, and I don't understand why. There are a lot of girls there who are pretty, and then they get, at a very young age, unnecessary plastic surgery, which robs them of their looks and just makes them look fake. They almost look like a real doll more than an actual human being, and I wish it would stop. I think it's unnecessary. It doesn't make anyone look better, and unfortunately, it is something now that has happened. There are multiple people in WWE, multiple female wrestlers that I think should really cool it with the plastic surgery.
And well, not just in wrestling, but you're seeing it there with all these people that want to be stars, somehow think that enhancing their fucking look, the personality of an attractive person with few quirks in their fucking features is a whole lot better than this goddamn, the Stepford wife Sable fucking approach. I'm sorry. But anyway. So I do apologize if I hurt anybody else's feelings over that one too. Oh God, fucking hell!
Did you see Lance Storm's?
Who tweeted? Well, hold that thought. Somebody also tweeted. In the old days, they used to have riots in the arenas, and now they get their feelings hurt on Twitter. And what did Lance Storm?
Lance Storm apparently replied to this fan and said, "Do you realize you are now guilty of spreading the exact same hateful words? Even if they aren't your words, quoting them and repeating them is spreading the hate. You are getting the attention for it while avoiding the blame, which may be as bad." And,
and a word from the principal comes in here. Lance will jerk a knot in your tail. And I'm surprised. You know what? Didn't they have a principal manager, an actual school principal in Calgary one time? I think, yes, Richard Pound, Dick Pound. That's when Bruce Hart was booking.
That's
and
when
he
Bruce
loved,
was a teacher, wasn't he?
I think so. But Bruce loved to make, Lance and I were talking about this one time. Bruce Hart loved to book Calgary and make these play on words. Like, he had a valet, a good girl valet, and a bad guy manager named Cox, specifically so that the announcer would have to say over and over, so-and-so wants to get her hands on Cox, and just all this bullshit. So I think they had a principal named like Dick Pound. Anyway, where were we with this? Oh, to put a period on all of this, yes, people, don't fucking set fire to your face and put it out with an axe. That's bad, okay?
Oh.
I've got a nice little note that I want to read here before we go any further.
A beautiful change of pace, yes.
A beautiful change of pace from a member of the cult of Cornette, Enrique in Kansas City. And I got a box at the post office the other day, and this was in it. Hello, Jim. You mentioned on the drive-thru that this was an acceptable alternative to a cake. You know what was in that box, Brian Last? A nice big carton of a dozen Twinkies and some birthday cake candles. Enrique in Kansas City did what you and YouTube with all your highfalutin ways couldn't do, and that's get me a celebratory cake for our 100,000 subscribers. It's now 125,000. I ain't got dick yet, except for this. So anyway, you mentioned this would be an acceptable alternative to a cake. It seems that your pleas for a sweet reward have fallen on deaf ears among the folks at YouTube, but not within your own cult. Thanks for being the only voice in wrestling. What is the matter with you now?
Your pleas for a sweet reward.
A sweet reward. Thanks for being the only voice in wrestling who has been as entertaining as you are honest, especially during this time of quarantine. The experience and drive-thru are vital for both comedy and wrestling. I have something to look forward to twice a week, and that's thanks to you, sir, the prophet of pro wrestling, the pontiff of podcasts, the shaman of shoot interviews. I had more of these, but kept it to 3, which sadly shows how much free time I have while being laid off. I'm an auto worker at the Ford Kansas City assembly plant and have greatly benefited from Omax cryo-freeze. That's what we've talked about on the program so much here lately. As I stand on the line for 10 hours a day and do my job 600 times a day building F-150s. Sore is an understatement. I ought to get Enrique on the Cornette's Collectibles line over here. He could show me how to get this shit out in 15 minutes. He says, thanks to arthritis, my hands swell and I end up with fatter joints than Willie Nelson. So thank you for the promo codes and partnerships that you pass along to your listeners. And in all seriousness, congratulations on 120,000 subscribers. Enrique from Kansas City. So I got finally some semblance of cake for that milestone that we and all of us in the cult of Cornette crossed together under my spearheading and leadership. But it took Enrique from Kansas City taking time at 10 hours a day on the assembly line, making F-150s, doing the same thing 600 times a day. Can you imagine that? We love you, Enrique.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, wow. There's a pithy comment. Yeah, you should say thank you, Enrique.
Thank you for sending Jim Twinkies, Enrique.
Enjoy
the Omax. It is fantastic.
Not for the Twinkies. Thank you, Enrique, for doing your... Do you have an F-150?
I do not.
Well, you should, but I have a partner to it. I have the Ford Expedition, which has... It's a Ford truck. It's just built differently, on the top, but it's the model of American motor manufacturing, a Ford truck, and people like Enrique get these products to us so that we can transport things and people and get ourselves around the fucking country. Without these people going and doing their jobs, you, Brian Last, and I would be poorer for it, especially you. You'd just be poorer for it.
Thank you, Enrique. Replaces thank you for Cuba.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Enrique. It didn't quite go. But anyway, and folks, speaking of the insanely popular Omax Cryo Freeze, the pain relief roll-on that Enrique mentioned there from the folks at Omax. We've been talking about it here lately on the program. The brand new product from Omax, the Cryo Freeze Advanced Joint Defense, the one-a-day supplement. Hemp-derived CBD and a clinically proven ingredient called NEM that relieves joint discomfort and soreness in 7 days or less. You take one of these bad boys a day, and you're all set. Reduce aches and pains from sore muscles, joint overuse, aging. If you want to stay active, if that's something you want to do to be active, I prefer to be sedentary, but I prefer to be pain-free while I'm doing it. But if you want to stay active, this is the way to do it. And since it's a brand new product for Omax for a limited time, and they have not told us how long this limited time may last, possibly till just the end of this month, 20% off the introductory pricing on the CryoFreeze supplements and free shipping and any product site-wide, 20% off. Just go to omaxhealth.com, OMAXhealth.com, and enter the code DRIVE to get all those things. 20% off, free shipping, pain relief. It relieves your pain and inflammation, baby. Even better than stand back powder. Do they even still make that fucking snake oil?
I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't seen it.
It was probably some kind of fucking powdered ceiling tile. Anyway, this stuff ain't. It's clinically proven and examined. So Omax, CryoFreeze, OmaxHealth.com, code DRIVE, 20% off. Don't let muscle soreness continue to be an excuse for living an active lifestyle or not even living one. One or the other. Don't let anything be an excuse, folks. Muscle soreness or anything else. You'll have no excuses if you get the Omax. We got shit to do today.
We have a plethora of questions that have been sent in over and over. Some of you people are about to get blocked. One guy just sent in about 40 tweets this morning, each one with a different question. This could have been done a much better way than this, but we will.
It seemed like it could have been streamlined a bit.
Somehow, or maybe save a couple for next week, but I don't know. Let's get some questions in, Jim. One that is actually coming from several different people based on something this morning as of we're recording. Let me ask you about this. I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter because you've been so busy causing feuds and problems in other places. But several questions were about this Twitter exchange. Let me read it to you. Dave Meltzer replied to someone, and this is another question we've gotten a lot I'll ask you about later, who said something.
All right, so far you've started 6 sentences. Haven't finished one of them.
It's a complicated topic here, but
it's complicated.
A lot of people have been talking about Otis as the new Dusty Rhodes. That's not the question.
What the
Hold on, we'll get to that one.
Oh, God.
But Dave Meltzer replied, Okada is the modern-day Jumbo Tsuruta. Tanahashi is the modern-day Bret Hart. Young Bucks are the modern-day Midnight Express.
Oh, not again.
Matt Riddle should be the modern-day Kerry Von Erich, but WWE doesn't know how to make top baby faces, so he isn't. Dax from FTR, Dax Harwood, replied, modern-day Midnight Express, with a little emoji of a laughing face, laughing to the point of tears. Why don't you ask the actual Midnight Express? All four, including Cornette, who they consider their modern-day equals. I guarantee it ain't your Golden Boys, Dave. So this topic has come up again, Jim, about...
Actually, that is a pertinent point. If you ask the actual people, all of them, all four of them, who they are being compared to, who they would compare themselves to, it not only would not be the Young Bucks. Oh, my fucking God. He's just... I don't want to go on and on about Dave anymore, because at this point it's sad that somebody that everybody used to think knew what he was talking about has suddenly gone far off the deep end over these fucking guys for whatever reason that nobody's been able to drag out of him, but that everybody has their suspicions. He just won't quit. And what do the kids call it? Trolling? Has he just decided to become a troll? And he knows that when he says just obvious idiotic things like that people will just flame on. I don't know.
Well, obviously there's a couple different things here. It's one thing to talk about the Young Bucks as a success in the business, and you can't deny the ability they have shown to sell merchandise and be not just the biggest draw on the indie scene, but really partly responsible for AEW. And you could certainly say that they're a big part of the success of AEW to the point where they got a contract from TNT to keep the show going. That's one thing. But when it comes to the actual in-ring work, let's just focus on that.
When it comes to anything about them personally or professionally, and anything that they do does not compare in any way, or is not applicable, is not an apt comparison to anything that the other team did or was like personally or professionally. Nothing. Did we cover it?
Well, let me ask you this. If you had to, taking out, or at least applying to this argument, the idea that work has obviously changed. Modern wrestling is very different.
I could say that the Bucks are like a cosplay Rock and Roll Express. If you took two kids who trained on a trampoline in their backyard and were good at gymnastics, and said dress up like the Rock and Roll Express and act like them, without the talent, psychology, ability of Ricky to sell, or of either one to respect the business, but just as played on television, they could kind of probably do that. But what the fuck? I don't compare the Revival to the Midnight Express as much as I do to Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, because they are so excellent technically, and while they do the high flying stuff, and Bobby didn't do some of the stuff that the former Revival does, they're such excellent wrestlers, and the teamwork and the ground and pound and the whole 9 yards, they remind me more. So I don't even compare the best tag team in the world today to the Midnight Express, much less two fucking flabby, now middle-aged and balding cosplay kids that have got over as a giggle with the fucking people that like wrestling to be a giggle. You can't.
All right. Well, our next question, Jim. Another one sent in many, many times on Twitter and via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Have you been following? And I hadn't until I saw these emails and I clicked on some of these things this morning and read some of these things. Have you been following the apparent Lio Rush Mark Henry feud?
I have not been following the apparent. I didn't know that Lio Rush and Mark Henry were mad at each other. I don't think. Has this been months ago or is this new? Didn't they say something to each other, now that I think about that, on Twitter one time a few months ago?
I think there was something about Mark Henry saying that he took Lio Rush aside, or he tried to talk to him about how to fit in or how to exist within the WWE system, and Lio Rush really didn't want to hear it from him at that time. I think, and I may be paraphrasing, I may be getting it wrong completely, I'm not sure.
Something like nobody I think there was something to that. I think Mark had given him some advice or whatever, and it didn't pan out, but nobody was motherfucking each other or anything.
Well, I have an article from TMZ about this, but before we get there, Lio Rush on Twitter put out a couple tweets. Let me play these for you. The first one was, "Hey, Mark Henry, this needs to be addressed because you out here still lying on my name to this day." And then there's a short audio clip here. Let me play this. This is Mark Henry speaking.
What happened? Ain't nothing happened between me and Lio Rush. I mean, if you want to count me trying to help him navigate, and he got the right to say he don't need my help.
And that's the short clip there. And while that clip is playing, Lio Rush had typed
that was a controversial statement there, boy. Inflammatory words there.
Lio Rush typed on the screen, "Yeah, but you don't have the right to say that I lied to you and try to bury me on your podcast," shaking my head. And then Lio Rush had several other tweets. "Don't even know why I'm entertaining this. Keep my name in your mouth, if you please." Is that supposed to be like that? Keep my name in your mouth?
I don't know.
You literally have nothing better to do than continue to talk shit on a situation that happened over a year ago about a 25-year-old who just lost his damn job. Sorry, guys, but I've been holding my breath for way too long. People like this need to get called out. It's sickening, it's disappointing, and it's extremely discouraging. I love my fans, and I pray that one day in the future, the state of this kind of matter progresses. And this is why African-American talent on the biggest platform will continue to not have equal opportunity, because people like you constantly tear down your own people.
Who? Wait a minute. He's talking to Mark like that?
Yeah. A damn shame, honestly. And at this point, Mark Henry replied with, tired of the bullshit. If you want to talk, put me on your podcast so we can have a conversation for the world to hear. And Mark Henry replied with the call-in number for his show. And then on TMZ, I guess it took a little bit of a turn here. Well, what are your initial thoughts?
I would say that it was a work, and they were trying to stir shit up and, get people to listen to the podcast, except that apparently from all accounts, Lio Rush really is a fucking idiot and just, goes off and says shit all over the place. Correct. So, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, other than this, I don't know. I could just be unknowing about it.
Because what is inflammatory there? And here's the.
Well, I don't know what he said we don't know what he said on his show. That's the other thing.
Well, but Mark talks like that. Mark is not inflammatory. As a matter of fact, Mark, which I'm actually still pissed at him because over the fucking fried chicken and the motor scooter in Ethiopia, when he was like, "Oh, Jim, I came up, blah blah blah." He could have easily said, "Well, Cornette's, telling jokes 24 hours a day, and most of them are old, and that's just Jim, but he doesn't mean anything by it because we've known each other for 20 years." But he was because anything to do with any type of racism Mark's a very nice guy, and he's not inflammatory, and he doesn't cut promos on people. So he's obviously not going to be a racist to Lio Rush. And I can't believe that he said much more inflammatory, that if he was going to say anything inflammatory, he would have said it in that clip you just played.
Well, here's an article from TMZ. The headline, WWE legend Mark Henry threatens to sue wrestler Lio Rush. Stop defaming me. And then in the article, Mark Henry has a warning for ex-WWE wrestler Lio Rush. Stop defaming me or my Harvard-educated lawyers are going to file a lawsuit against your ass. Earlier this week, Lio Rush, who has been released by WWE, fired off a barrage of tweets attacking the Hall of Famer, accusing Henry of torpedoing black wrestlers' careers, writing, this is
for fuck's sake.
TMZ Sports talked to an extremely upset Mark Henry, who said Rush's comments are straight up nonsense. Quote, if you go down to the Performance Center in NXT, probably 25, I think, people of color in the facility, probably about 80+% of them I helped get there. I mean, it's completely opposite. And then that's the end of that quote. So if it's true, so if it ain't true, why'd Rush write what he did? Mark tells us...
Because he's a fucking mental case.
Mark tells us...
I thought you were asking me.
No. Mark tells us Leo's clout chasing, using his name and fame to promote his music career. Quote, he knew that I get a lot of attention. I have a lot of followers, and he released the album or song or something, and he wanted to use that to get some attention. Get some buzz.
Wait a minute. Now Lio Rush is a musician too. Is he gonna do a fucking duet with Enzo Amore?
You know, that would be something.
Maybe they could redo You Don't Bring Me Flowers Anymore, like Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond.
Islands in the Stream.
There you go, Kenny and Dolly. Can you imagine Enzo Amore and fucking Lio Rush? Islands in the stream, that is what we are, because everybody threw us off the bank and hope we drown in the stream.
Consensual
we just
penis.
Out here. Oh, God.
Well, it continues here. Mark is adamant. If Rush would have just asked for help, he would have plugged his music, no problem. But what he did and said was way out of bounds. Quote, if he would have called me, I would have done it anyway. We would have just worked it. I would have really talked it up. We would have made world news. But now, he said something slanderous. And you can't question my blackness. Like nobody can question my blackness. Pull my black card. No, not allowed. Nobody. Mark's so mad, he tells us he's seriously considering filing a lawsuit. Quote, my lawyer went to Harvard. I don't know what kind of lawyers he's dealing with, but I got those Ivy League people around me, and they're pissed. But there is one thing Lio Rush can do before he finds his ass in the courtroom. Say sorry, and really mean it. And the final quote here from Mark Henry, he needs to apologize.
I know Mark very well, and I believe that he said every single one of those things, and they're all true. And I think Lio Rush is a fucking mental case, and I've been saying that since they signed him first, right? Remember when he's the one that took the fucking power bomb off the roof of something in some garbage wrestling show in New Jersey as his farewell, and then no-sold it so he could pop up and take a bow. So he's always been a fucking idiot. And once again, a slappable face and $1 million talent if they'd have made him an asshole manager that you wanted to fucking see and you would pay to see get the shit kicked out of him, but he wants to be a fucking wrestling superstar at 5'2" and 140, and with a goddamn obviously a fucking screw loose because he's always fucking torpedoing his own self because nobody gives a shit whether he's around or not when he's running his mouth. I can run my mouth because I'm here at home and I don't give a shit whether I go anywhere, but him, he still wants a fucking job, allegedly. I'm sure he'll do the same thing in music as he's done in wrestling. Piss people off.
I do think, though, there's a little bit of hypocrisy here because Mark Henry's saying, you could have just come right to me. You should apologize to me. You should have come to me and talked to me. On TMZ, at TMZ Sports, from this article I just read, after the starvation joke, Mark was so upset that he didn't call you. He didn't call Stacy. He has your numbers. He knows you guys very well.
Stace actually did text him, though, when she heard it and said, seriously? What the fuck?
Well, he ran to TMZ
yeah.
instead, which, again, if you're, that is a little bit of a bullshit move. You got a problem with Jim and Jim,
yeah.
go to you. Don't go to TMZ.
I didn't say it wasn't. And he's got my phone number. But, I wasn't going to apologize because it was, not something I was going to apologize for. But I would have told him I didn't mean anything bad by it. But at any rate, in this situation, Mark's right, though. What the fuck? The guy just goes off and says, oh, you're a racist. Did you fucking bury black people? Because he told the guy, he gave him some advice. The guy didn't listen to it. Lio Rush looks to me like a guy that would not listen to people telling him what not to do, because elsewise he wouldn't have done a bunch of the shit that he's done.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people in wrestling right now are very successful who have made that their calling card, where all the veterans told us things to do. We didn't want to do it the old way. We wanted to do it our way. And then we found a billionaire's son, and now we can do it our way.
Yes, and now we've proven that it works as long as you've got the ability to get a network TV show to fucking... anyway, but I will say one thing to Mark Henry. You may have Harvard lawyers, but you don't have... You may have lawyers with ivy or weeds or dandelions or all kinds of things growing over them, but you do not have the lawyer. You have a lawyer, but we have the lawyer. Ladies and gentlemen, the consigliere of the cult of Cornette is the lawyer, the man that you should think of, the name. If you have any problem or have to navigate the treacherous shark-infested waters of the legal system, the attorney that you should call.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, as a matter of fact, if your attorneys are covered in any type of greenery or shrubbery or lettuce or whatever, turn them in, folks, and get one that's covered in the only green that really matters, and that's money. Stephen P. New is the man. He is covered, and he could walk through Fort Knox covered in glue and come out covered in funds, and he wouldn't look any richer than he does right now, because he gets you your compensation in a court of law from these big corporations that try to fuck you around. As a matter of fact, Stephen, he makes so much money, his cologne smells like $100 bills. Did you know that, Brian?
I've heard rumors.
As a matter of fact, it's amazing to smell and behold. But anyway, our friend here of the experience and the drive-thru and the cult of Cornette in general, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. Whether you're being maligned by a disgruntled, mentally unstable outlaw indie wrestler, or whether you're being persecuted or damaged or maligned in some other way by one of these big corporations, whether it's by the food you eat, the medicine that you take. Remember the genital gangrene that was caused by that diabetes medicine that Stephen got people paid for?
That's right.
The medicine you take, the food you eat, the air you breathe, the water you drink, it's all under attack, folks. And the only one that's going to stand up for your rights is Stephen P. New, the consigliere of the cult of Cornette. Get even with Stephen, as we've said so many times in the past. If Stephen can't get your ass paid, your ass does not accept cash. A man who literally walks around smelling like $100 bills.
What does a $100 bill smell like, Jim?
Smells like about $100.
All right. 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen. newlawoffice.com. Let's get some more questions here, Jim, because it's gone so well so far.
Yeah, so far, so good.
This was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Ryan Halstead. The Undertaker signed a 15-year contract last year that will keep him employed by the WWE until he is 70 years old. Apparently, this isn't a Legends contract. What role do you see The Undertaker in going forward, if any? Is this a way to ensure he never shows up at another company? Or is this a reward for loyalty? Or is The Undertaker just a shrewd businessman who has Vince over a barrel?
A little bit of everything involved in that. I don't think that Vince fully realized that, because he had never done it before, that when Mark left the WWE and was done in his mind, done with wrestling, that he would do the occasional autograph session or appearance as himself, or even as, as the Undertaker, or some combination of the two, whatever the case. I don't think that Vince ever thought of it, and I don't know whether Mark ever brought it up, but I know that they got highly upset in the WWE when Mark had agreed to do the Inside the Ropes tour. What was it, last year now at this point, or early 2019 or whenever it was. I can't blame Vince for being protective of it, of the whole gimmick and the whole thing, but we're not talking like that Undertaker was going to go out and do flea markets and, every Comic Con in the world. I know of 2 or 3 appearances that he had scheduled for, and they were all for large, huge even amounts of money. But Vince thought, well, I don't want to let another icon get away, I guess, and I want to keep him in the family. And yes, Mark's a shrewd businessman, because he got himself to the point where Vince is wanting to fucking buy him back from the public domain. Yes, Vince wants to reward Mark, I'm sure, for his efforts, but more importantly, Vince wants the Undertaker and or Mark Calloway to be financially secure for the rest of his life, and also be involved with the WWE for the rest of his life, and not ever even, I don't even think that Vince believes that Mark at this point, even if he was physically able to wrestle a full schedule, would actually go and be an ongoing character as a wrestler for some other promotion, even for a billionaire. Now, for fucking $5 million, he might have a one match, right? Well, he can't do that anymore. But everything, it's to reward Mark. He's been such an important part of the company. He's been the only one that never left, and the only one that didn't screw Vince. I'm sure it's for a significant amount of money. They've passed the point where the last time Vince gave one of those out to Bret Hart was a 20-year contract. A year later, he's like, well, yeah, geez, I changed my mind. There's no way that the WWE will ever be in a financial position where they could not pay Taker that money, and he knows it. Because I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, he trusts Vince after what he did to Bret. That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. They've got so much money now, and I'm sure that there's something that would prevent them from doing that again, a no-cut fucking clause or whatever. So everybody prospers. They're always, as the Last Ride shows, the documentary series, they're always going to take care of the Undertaker as a gimmick and a character and a personality to the utmost that they can. They're always going to give him, deferential treatment and respect as far as what he's done. He's going to he don't ever have to worry about doing anything ever again until he's 70 or whatever. Everybody wins over that. And he doesn't have to fucking worry about goddamn getting, booked for some of these off-brand, comic conventions or fan fests or things where shit happens even under the best of terms. Although the Inside the Ropes thing would have been great. Kenny Mack does a wonderful job. But
it is interesting because here you have the Undertaker signing this deal. You have to imagine it's a nice size annual paycheck he's getting from them.
Yes.
They've just let go of all these wrestlers during a pandemic who were actually actively being used. Is it hard to justify giving a guy like The Undertaker, who may, if he has any matches left in him, it may be few and far between, this money just to prevent him from doing autograph shows and, God forbid, making an appearance at AEW or something? Is it really worth it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, well, think about this. 28 years of the WWE video library features The Undertaker in the most iconic big show matches everywhere, blah, blah, blah. The They made money on The Undertaker on VHS. They made money on him on DVD. They made money on him on Blu-ray. Now they're making money on him on the network. In 15 years, however the fuck else are they going to be able to make money on him? They're making money on him. And to have him in the fold to endorse those things and promote those things and be a part of some of the video things that they may do, to still return in some respect as a personality or a persona, to potentially that fucking mini movie. We said he ought to be in fucking action movies because his demeanor, his voice, his look, his personality, you buy him and he don't come across as 55 years old in that mini movie. And that's something that they can still exploit. They can make money on The Undertaker for the next 15 years just because of who he is, how well known he is, what he's done, and with the catalog they've got already. So it's not a stupid business move. If it was somebody that was minorly over for a short period of time and was a wonderful guy and deserved it, that, it would be more sentimental to have a deal like that. But no, Undertaker still means huge money.
It's not a Legends contract. It's a 15-year contract that will pay him a nice sum of money, we assume. Is there anyone else you could think of that Vince McMahon should give a contract to like that to? I mean, should Steve Austin have a deal like that? Should Rock have a deal like that?
Well, The Rock, I mean, I guess he could cure cancer and run for fucking president in his spare time, but The Rock wouldn't take a deal like that because he wouldn't have time to devote whatever to it, and he's got so many other things going on. Steve Austin has already done some movies. I'm sure he has an agent representation. I'm not his accountant or his fucking business manager, but I'm not whether I'm aware of whether they have any kind of contractual relationship right now or not. There should be some conduit of business that they're doing. Well, they do, because his podcast is on the network all the time and everything. So they're doing something. But thing is, Steve Austin, the difference there is Steve Austin has already been Steve Austin elsewhere, because Steve Austin on the WWE television program was Steve Austin. He looks the same. He's not a different person. He doesn't really act that much differently. So it's hard to get an exclusive contract with Steve Austin rather than it is The Undertaker. I mean, I'm sure Mark Calloway as a person can go out and, start breeding fucking miniature dachshunds or whatever and publicize himself that way. But the Mark Calloway, in terms of The Undertaker, cannot appear for other wrestling promotions. And I would assume they would have a hand in whether he does movies or what he does, etc. So I think he's a different example than Austin. And Austin's already been in a bunch of movies and established himself as he is that guy. Undertaker and Mark are still two different people.
All right, let's get some more questions here, Jim. This is, I'm going to ask you a few right now about Mike Tyson, because several have come in. This first one was sent in by Jewish John in Milwaukee to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. With the recent news of Mike Tyson presenting the AEW TNT Championship to the winner of Cody versus Lance Archer at the upcoming pay-per-view, I was curious about Jim's memories of the man who famously said he wanted to eat Lennox Lewis's children. Did Jim interact with Tyson at all in the WWF during the WrestleMania 14 buildup? What were his thoughts on the pull-apart angle with Austin as it happened? And finally, did Jim think the angle would get as much mainstream attention as it did?
I had actually zero interaction with Mike Tyson and did not try to have any more than that, just because for he was there at the Raw where they did the pull apart thing. He was there at WrestleMania. I was more concerned with what kind of fucking interaction at WrestleMania Michaels was going to have with anybody and whether he was going to actually fucking do business or not. But no, they always came in. He went to his private fucking room. He had the goddamn entourage. Vince and maybe Pat Patterson were taking whoever needed to be in the thing, whether it be Michaels, whether it be Austin, whether it be DX, whatever the fuck, in the room and going over it. I didn't poke my head in. I didn't want to be involved. If like the old George Carlin thing, he's driving down the highway, he sees an accident, he didn't stop. Why? I had nothing to do with it. It didn't concern me. I kept moving so as not to obstruct others. No, I mean, I wasn't really going to go up and ask Mike Tyson for his autograph. I had no business reason to be involved in those segments because none of them were either with my people and or me producing it. So, no, I just stayed over in the corner and, talked to fucking whoever I was. Was that one of those times where Murdoch was in, or maybe Dutch Mantell or somebody? We were probably over in the corner telling stories.
Yeah, I think Murdoch had already passed away by that point in time.
That's true. That's right. So maybe Dutch was there at that point. But no, I didn't have any interaction. But yes, Mike Tyson was the biggest, sports figure in the world at the time. So I knew it was going to get a ton of attention. I found out later on that how much of a wrestling fan he really was, because I thought, oh boy, this is going to be awkward. But no, he really was a wrestling fan for a long time and still is, obviously. So he did a pretty good job and everything went according to plan. I couldn't believe that he would ever justify the money that they paid him, even with all that publicity. But it turned out that was the big fucking thing that got Austin over. So it did. So it was, and I mean, it was great when it happened because people were going fucking crazy and you remember that scene of chaos in the ring. It looked like one of those after a boxing match fucking fights that's not planned and real and gets started and the pushing around and everything. They did a good job with it. And it didn't come off hokey. Even the fucking, Russo influence of, they had to tease that Tyson was going to join DX, but then he's got the shirt on and blah, 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 and all that stuff. That couldn't fuck it up because everybody just did a good job with it.
Do you remember when the idea was first brought up? And also, do you remember hearing rumors before he came in that WCW was trying to bring Mike Tyson in?
I probably did hear those rumors and didn't give a shit enough to commit them to memory. But I remember when at first Vince was telling me, and because that was WrestleMania was March of '98. So he was still
at the Royal Rumble. So I mean, the talks.
Yeah, he was at the Royal Rumble. I was on the creative team till December of '97. So it was around Thanksgiving-ish or whatever the fuck. That I remember them saying, well, we think we've got him, or we're talking to him, or working stuff out. And then, he's going to be there. And then that's about, I mean, I really wish that I had all these remarkable, memories of the exact planning of that whole thing. But the fact is, it was just, we're doing that shit every week. And, here's Mike Tyson. They had Liberace. What the fuck's next? But nobody thought to save Elvis's napkin at Sun Records either. So.
Another question that has come in. This was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Ron Atkins. Hi, Jim. Ron Atkins here.
Well, hello, Ron Atkins.
AEW announcing Mike Tyson in just a quick announcement feels like a giant misstep. I get with the virus these shows are not at top level, but they paid this guy a king's ransom. Even if it was a last-minute thing, they have 1 week to make this mean something. It just seems off to me. So, Jim, what do you think about the way AEW handled the announcement that Mike Tyson will be at the event? Should they have made this a bigger deal?
How did they announce it?
I think it was just a graphic on screen, wasn't it? That Mike Tyson will hand out the championship.
I don't know. Well, see, remember, I zip through all the entrances and all of the fucking graphics and where the announcers are billboarding the matches, so I don't have to listen to Exhibit or Excalibur or Expectorant or whatever his name is. And then I read about it on the internet, but yeah, they have pictures, public domain pictures. You could have got B-roll of Mike Tyson and some fucking video and shit and done a package of, 30 seconds, one would think, for a guy who actually helped, as we just talked about, create the biggest wrestling star in the modern era. But why would they do that?
Right. Well, all right.
If Elvis could come back to life and they would fucking still give Moxley 20 minutes to walk through the arena and mention that Elvis would be on the show the next week.
Another popular topic. Many, many people have sent in this question on email and Twitter. I'll read one of them. This is from Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from Almost a Pair. Recently, Earl Hebner was quoted as saying that 23 years later, he thinks the Montreal Screwjob was a work, stating that he believes he was only there to call for the bell. As one of the three main men who were involved backstage at the time, what are your thoughts?
I love Earl Hebner. I like his son and his brother, and I've known them forever, and I don't know what may have formed all of Earl's opinions, although he's taken a lot of shit for a long time over that. But no, it wasn't a work. Everybody knows it wasn't a work. There's no possibility it was a work. If it had been a work, it wouldn't have worked out that good, because nothing ever lines up that perfectly if you try. But no, we've had enough. It's anybody in the business now that says at this point that it's a work is either, and I can understand for Earl being confused by the whole thing and his unique position, but anybody just on the outside looking in that thinks that it was a work at this point is either just trying to get attention or is just a blithering simpleton.
Okay, well, that sums that up.
I don't know what else to say at this point. I mean, people are acting like there's still shit that's out there to be revealed and debated and whose side is right and whose is wrong. No, there's not any debate in this. And the pretty much between the contemporaneous reporting in the Observer and what I've told on my podcast, you got the goddamn story. And there ain't no more to that story.
Are you surprised that Earl Hebner, all these years later, would say that he thinks it's a work now?
I don't know. Maybe Earl's working. Maybe he figure he'll get more interviews that way. I don't know. Or maybe he's just mind fucked himself from dwelling on it all these years to how the fuck at first he thought that he was doing right. Then he thought he was doing wrong. Then he felt shamed. Then he was embarrassed. Then he started enjoying it and fucking, making a gimmick out of it. I screwed Brett. And all that stuff, that might mess somebody up. I know exactly what happened. And apart from, as I've said, apart from indirectly me being responsible for the fucking total ending of kayfabe in general with this whole goddamn fiasco, no, there ain't nothing else out there that ain't come out that needs to come out.
When was the first time you heard someone claim that they thought it was a work?
Oh God, I mean, a few people at the time were like, oh, it has to be, they're in on it. And even some of the boys back then, because the boys, if that's one thing that the dark side of the ring and some of these shoot interviews have done, it's illustrating to fans that just because sometimes guys have been in the business for 30 years doesn't mean they ever knew how it worked. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
you can tell that. You can tell that sometimes. And it was always natural for the boys to mistrust the office or the promoter. And because all of that stuff happened in the way that it happened, and the documentary crew being there, and then everybody ended up making money except and Brett made money. They just botched his entire career. WCW got the hottest wrestler in the world. Vince got out from under the contract. Vince became Mr. McMahon and soon had a new fucking top star that would make him even more money. Everything happened good, but it wasn't that way at the time, and nobody was planning for it to be that way, and you couldn't have planned for that because you couldn't have planned it. So it just gets ridiculous. But then you also have people that have muddied the water that had no fucking knowledge of anything or have tried to fucking do their own, Shitstain's going to tell you that he was all over it. DX is going to say that they did this and that and the other thing and who was in on it and blah, blah, blah. And poor Scott Hall still said that it was a work on Dark Side of the Ring just because they had to have somebody say that because, but it made him look really.
No, they didn't. They did not have to have someone say that.
They didn't have to have somebody say that, but to present all sides. There is a segment that believes the earth is flat, but we don't let them out in public when grown folks are talking. But anyway, there's nothing else that's going to be revealed about that whole thing.
Jim, this week we've received several questions about Owen Hart, so let me ask you these. This first one was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Kevin Flint in Evansville, Indiana. In a recent interview on Chris Jericho's show, Martha Hart claimed WWE sued her after Owen's death, claiming breach of contract. Can you shed any light on this, if it is true or not?
But no, because we should put the Stephen P. New spot here. I'm not an attorney, and I guarantee you when she sued, there were counterclaims and cross suits and et cetera, et cetera. And to be fair, in a lot of those cases, it doesn't mean that Vince McMahon specifically says that Owen Hart is breaching his contract because he's dead. But the attorneys have found a way to enter a counterclaim to fucking screw everything up and fuck with everything. And usually the big company with the big expensive lawyers does that to somebody until the somebody can't fight it or pay anymore or whatever. That's why it's always good to have somebody like Stephen P. New as your somebody, because he does what's right. But in this case, because the case was so valid, Martha and the attorneys kept fighting. So I don't know the specifics of exactly what claims and counterclaims were filed and et cetera, but it was involving that to begin with when Martha filed suit, as she rightfully should have, to get the fucking money that she was owed for that colossal fuck up that killed her husband. So that was during that time. But, you know, as far as you can't just come out and say Vince sued Owen for breaching his contract, because it was the attorneys trying to do all the shit that attorneys do.
This next question was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mike Poricelli. Hey guys, big fan of the show.
Wait a minute, wasn't that a 70s TV show about a district attorney, Poricelli?
I don't know. I don't know that show.
All right.
Did they have a good theme song?
I can't remember it.
With Owen Hart's Dark Side of the Ring episode finally around the corner, I was wondering what thoughts Jim might have on this snippet of a Shawn Michaels shoot interview from 2000. He makes comments on Owen that contradict something Jim has said in the past. He specifically says the main reason Owen never got recognized as a top guy in the WWF was because Vince McMahon did not think Owen was main event material. And what hurt him further was that he was one of the guys who never came to Vince or creative with ideas about what he wanted to do. This goes against what Jim said in your series of Montreal Screwjob themed episodes, that in the aftermath, Vince wanted to book Owen as the WWF's new Canadian hero, basically replacing Brett, and that he would work a feud with HBK on top of the card. Shawn went on to say the plan was never for he and Owen to work a lengthy program. Owen's opponent was quickly swapped from Shawn Michaels to Triple H because, in Shawn's words, quote, Vince wanted a way to get Triple H over. Was this decision a result of the DX's burial of Owen, which ultimately hurt his image with the crowd and Vince himself? I understand these comments are from 20 years ago, but I'm interested to hear what Jim thinks about Shawn's recollection of events in regards to Owen's booking after the double cross of 1997.
Well, it's either that's what Vince was telling Shawn and Triple H when they were whining and complaining to him, or that's the story that Shawn has come up with to explain how those things happened in a better light for him, or he just happened to say that day because of the question he was asked or whatever. But no, to placate Owen Hart, and once again, I was still around for the aftermath of that for another month, to placate Owen Hart, and so he wouldn't leave, as well as Bulldog was leaving, and Brett was already gone. He didn't want to lose everybody. He tore up Owen's existing contract, gave him like $150,000 a year raise to like $400,000, and he instructed the creative team that we would get a goddamn. You know, I don't know if he ever said we're going to make Owen the Canadian hero or that exact verbiage, but we're going to make Owen a top guy to come back and get revenge on Shawn and run Shawn and Owen. That's also what he told Owen to get Owen to sign the contract. But it didn't happen. Because that's when Sean started doing the promos about, the little nugget. You flush the turd, but the little nugget just won't go down, keeps floating around, and just diminished Owen, didn't take him seriously. And, I never heard Vince say anything approaching that Owen Hart wasn't a top talent. And that's what they were trying to make him. Do you think he would give him $400,000 a year 23 years ago if he didn't think he was a top talent and want to keep him? And when Vince gave somebody that much money, the creative team was instructed to at least in those days, to figure out a way to fucking put them on top of the cars, justify their fucking position, their salary. So that's like everything else. Shawn Michaels, there's a clip out there of an old interview with Rob Feinstein where he said, well, I just sat Cornette down one day and told him, hey, you may not like it, but things are going my way instead of your way. And not this old fashioned stuff, but it's going to be a changing way. And if you don't like it, except we never had that conversation. We never had a personal conversation. I interacted with him in a professional capacity with whatever I had to fucking relay to him. And he did the same thing to me. And we never really fucking had any personal conversations, much less one that deep. And you probably would have heard about it by now. At least for me, you would have. So he makes this shit up to explain after the fact why that people think badly of him and not of other people.
In the aftermath of Montreal, was Vince McMahon worried about how the Canadian fans, and not just Montreal, but Calgary, Toronto, wherever, would accept WWF if they didn't have Brett? Obviously, Bulldog and Neidhart were gone. That is one of the main reasons I would think that you would want to give Owen more money to keep him, so you had a Canadian star. Were they worried? Yeah. Were there any internal discussions about, how is Canada going to react to this?
No, I said it wasn't like when Walter Cronkite criticized the Vietnam War, and in the White House they said, my God, if we've lost Cronkite, we've lost America. It wasn't like if we've lost Brett, we've lost Canada. They wanted to keep Owen more for the wrestling fans everywhere rather than the specific country, and for the, just to not lose the whole bunch of them. But also because, Vince wanted to use him at least at that time. Plans change. So but I think the publicity of just the whole, this was before that it dawned on Vince that he was going to be the heel in this, and he was going to become Mr. McMahon, and then he embraced it and went the whole way with it. But remember, as we've talked about, for the first few weeks, he thought he was going to be the babyface and bury Brett. So I think it was not necessarily, hurting the business in Canada as far as when we run, will the fans come back? It was just the publicity that was going out on a mainstream basis in general, at least if he still had Brett's brother, et cetera, et cetera. But, specifically, Vince told at least me and Shitstain after it happened, no, we're going to keep Owen. We're going to tear up his contract. We're going to give him a raise. We have him a run with Michaels and fucking use him. Yeah, how long that lasted, I don't know.
And it was a big deal when he came back after a while. He had that first promo on Raw. That was a big deal to fans like me. Yeah.
Exactly. And they wouldn't have, if they weren't going to fucking do a big thing at the start, they wouldn't have brought him back. And what, do you have the first 15 minutes of the fucking show or whatever? Or whatever. I don't remember if it was the start of the show or what, that big segment. Yeah, it's just they put the kibosh on it because they didn't treat him seriously. They didn't treat him as a threat. He wasn't in part of their clique. They didn't want him in part of the clique. They wanted to control things. And also Owen and Shawn could have torn the fucking house down effortlessly in the ring, but Shawn didn't want to do that with people he didn't want to do that with.
Our next question was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Nick Schmidt in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
All right, wait a minute. Nick Schmidt from Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Yes.
All right, I'm suspicious so far.
The very first wrestling video I owned was In Your House 3 triple header. Who came up with the idea of Owen being late to the show and Jim having to ask every heel in the building to replace him as an honorary tag team champ for the night? And why did they choose to bury Owen at the end of this match? They talk about how he hasn't shown up to the building all night, and they replace him with the Bulldog, only for him to run into the ring and get powerbombed by Diesel, and Shawn gets the win. Why couldn't they have just done a double DQ or countout so all 3 belts were protected? Love what you guys do. You help me get through the week.
Well, you got to remember, this was before I was on the creative team, because this was the In Your House 3 was what, in 95. I was still living in Knoxville, running Smoky Mountain. I was coming up as a guest star. And I do remember getting to the building and getting that finish. I said, wait a minute, let me get this straight. Yoko and Owen are already kind of a makeshift team, but they have won the tag team belts. And now Owen's going to be late, so you're going to put Bulldog in there. They're going to wrestle these guys, but then Owen's going to run out. And now that there's 3 heels, he's going to get powerbombed, and they're not even beating the substitute, but the guy that's in the team. What the fuck? But I was... At the time, I can't remember who, but somebody explained to me that they don't go for fucking heat up here. Well, it's not like I needed to explain by that point. I've been around for a while, but it was reiterated. Nobody's going for any heat here. And it was once, even then in those days, when he would put the tag team belts on top names that had been individual top names in his company, they would still always be subservient to the individual champions and or the Golden Boys. And so that was the thing. You could only get so far before you ran up against Nash or Michaels or whatever the fuck, and that was that. So no, it was a good concept for the pay-per-view, and it could have been a good match, but it was a stupid fucking finish, and it just buried the heels and buried the tag team title. But I was only a cameo appearance at that point, so I just wandered out and did what the fuck.
This next question was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Parag in San Diego, California. I recently came across a video of a boxing match between Owen Hart and Rougeau in Montreal.
Oh my God.
Around the time that Jim was managing Owen. I would love to hear some details about it. Was it a one-time thing just for Montreal, or did Owen have a series of these matches?
No, it was a one-time thing just for Montreal, and believe it or not, I have the program lineup for that night framed and hanging above my desk area here where I can look at it. And it was second from the top. The main event was Shawn Michaels and Vader. I was also managing Vader for the WWF Championship, but the semifinal was a 10-round boxing match because it was Montreal. And by the way, the program lineup is in French. La Fédération Mondiale de Lutte. Centre Molson de Montréal, Tournée Règlement de Attitude. The Attitude fucking revenge tournament or something. I don't know. But anyway, and then, by the way, we were on top of Undertaker versus Mankind, Psycho Sid versus the British Bulldog, Ahmed Johnson versus Goldust for the Intercontinental title, Jake Snake Roberts versus Jerry the King Lawler, No DQ with Savio Vega and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Wildman Mark Merrow against Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the Godwins versus the Smoking Guns versus the Body Donnas versus the New Rockers, and in the opening match, which is where he got his nickname. Remember Bradshaw's original name before John Bradshaw Layfield was Justin Hawk Bradshaw?
Yeah.
Well, on this lineup, he's taking on local boy Carl LeDuc, the nephew of Joe LeDuc, and he's Justin Hank Bradshaw, which is why for the past 24 years, every time I've seen him, I've called him Hank. It was a big lineup at the Molson Center in Montreal, and I don't have the gate in front of me, but it did, several $100,000 Canadian money. And it was a nice payoff, except back then, Canadian money was worth about 70 cents on the U.S. dollar or whatever. So every time we saw those blue checks from the Toronto office from Carl DeMarco, we would get a sinking feeling in the pit of our stomach. But Ray Rougeau was doing television at the time for the WWF. But since this was Montreal, they decided to do a little something. Well, fucking Owen and Ray in a boxing match. Where the fuck did that come from? Where that came from was that Ray Rougeau got George Chuvalo to be in his corner. And for the folks who don't know, George Chuvalo was a hugely famous fucking boxer. Goddamn, did he win the title at one time in the 60s or whatever the fuck? He fought Ali. He was one of the most famous boxers of the modern era. And he's, French Canadian and local and whatever the fuck. So that was kind of an attraction match. Ray Rougeau with, and hold on, I can't see without my glasses. I got to bring this down here. Ray Rougeau, accompagnant dans son coin de Jacques Rougeau and Dino Clavette. So Ray had his brother Jacques and Dino Clavette, who was another French-Canadian boxer, in his corner, and he got George Chuvalo to come and be in Owen's corner. And so it was a fucking goddamn, gimmick match just for Montreal. But I got this nice fucking program page out of it. I can't read a goddamn word of this. Dino Clavette had a boxing gym there also, Gymnase de Boxe.
Were you there? Were you at the show?
I was at the show, yes. That's where I got the program. See, this was... goddamn, Le O2 out 96. Would that have been August? Is that out?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, whatever. I think it was August 96, and we were, that's when I was making some of the big house shows with Vader. I made the Toronto Exhibition Stadium show that month with Vader, where we did 30,000 people or whatever, and I worked with Jose, and Vader worked with Sean that night also. So I was making some of those big events at that point. Besides, Montreal is only a 4-hour drive from Stamford. So I'd rather go to Montreal than I would Kansas City. Except for the road signs are in French and they give you a headache trying to look at them.
Such a unique town because even after all the territories died, Montreal was the one city, especially with the Rougeau brothers, specifically Jacques, where you could bring in WCW or the WWF and do a unique, localized main event featuring a Rougeau, and it would draw a big house.
Yeah, and that's why they were figured into this one and instrumental in getting the celebrities to come in. The French Canadian people are fiercely protective of their own people, and then the Dino Bravo. Let's face it. Dino Bravo was God in Montreal, the top guy in wrestling and drawing 20-something thousand people. But then, and he had been more athletic in his younger days. But when you saw that version of Dino Bravo on a national basis, he wasn't that great, but he was French and he could cut a fired up promo. They love their French people in Quebec.
But do they love breakfast in Quebec?
I'll tell you one thing they fucking love. They love not giving you any ice in your drinks, but that when I first went to Montreal, that's why I learned that fromage was cheese. So I was able to ask for extra fromage, but they will not give you ice in a drink. But what they do is put gravy on French fries, so they can't be all bad. But I'll tell you what, you don't have to be Canadian, American, Mexican, or even Czechoslovakian to eat a good breakfast. And part of a good breakfast is eating stuff that not only tastes good, but is good for you at the same time. Cue the intro music we have to have written for Magic Spoon, the incredible new cereal that everybody has fallen in love with once you stick one piece in your mouth. We got this stuff, and I thought this is going to be a tough read because I don't like cereal. You can eat this shit like candy. You can just go around and eat it like trail mix, just out of the box by hand. You don't even have to put it in milk. Stacy has gone nuts over it. She's sending it out to her family. You've already ordered some more using our code to save money.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they do it. But they have made a cereal that tastes as good or better as all the sugar-filled, carb-filled crap that you feed the kids before they go to school so they can bounce off the walls on the teacher's dime. But this stuff, it's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. But there are 4 flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. No sugar, 12 grams of protein in each serving, 3 net grams of carbs in each serving, and it's good. So all I'm asking you think I'm full of shit because we're getting paid for this. Try a box. If you don't think that this cereal tastes like it ought to be unhealthy, I will kiss your ass on Broadway. Go to magicspoon.com/drive and get the variety pack, one of each. Use the promo code DRIVE at checkout. You'll get free shipping. It won't cost you a dime to get it sent to you, so you don't have to go out to the store. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, and it's like the old money-back guarantee that I drew that big house in Knoxville on against Bob Armstrong, because they can be confident because no asshole is sending this stuff back. 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they will refund your money and not ask any questions. I myself would interrogate you and ask about your damaged taste buds if it was me, but they won't even ask any questions. So, magicspoon.com/drive. Use the code DRIVE. Free shipping. Best cereal you've ever stuck in your face. And it won't make you fat and do all the damage to your teeth that sugar does.
I highly recommend the frosted flavor. It's delicious. I ordered a case of just that one flavor.
A case?
I love it. It's fantastic. I've had it like every day.
Now, wait a minute. How much is in a case? Is it going to be like when Lucy and Ethel ordered what they thought was just the freezer full of meat and instead got 2 sides of meat instead of...
No, it's just 4 boxes. 4 boxes.
Okay. Well, when you say case, I'm thinking like they're putting this shit on a ship and transporting it across like Dracula from Transylvania. All right. Anyway, I get real quick. I got one for you here. Right here.
It sure sounds like it. Okay.
I have a hello here from the state of New York. Actually, it just says hello from NY. So I don't know whether it's the state or the city, but it's from Jacob. And he says, a few times now I've heard Cornette talk about gimmicking different objects, tables, chairs, 2x4s, etc. Whenever this comes up, he never goes into any detail about what you do to them so that you can hit someone safely. Is this to preserve one of wrestling's secrets so he doesn't get in trouble when listeners try to do it? Now, actually, I would enjoy that if somebody tried to break a board over their own head in the backyard and went to the hospital. Because
do you remember when, real quick, when they were doing the Ken Patera, they were busting cinder blocks on him on Georgia TV?
Yes.
With Snuka and Gordy there. And then Gordy grabs the mic from Gordon Soley and says all the kids at home should try this on their buddies.
Yeah, try it on your friends at home. What Bam Bam said. But anyway, so he doesn't get in trouble when listeners try to do it or just because he didn't think it was relevant. If you don't mind, I'd like to hear some about how you gimmick stuff. I think it would be interesting, especially since Jim always says that nobody knows how to do it right anymore. Well, that is part of the thing is that, the magician, Penn and Teller may admit that it's an illusion, but they don't tell you how to do it. Even on the Fool Me show, they whisper to the guy so they don't publicly out the magicians that they caught their fucking sleight of hand or whatever. But here's the thing. Everybody thinks, okay, well, it was gimmick. That means it's safe. And that means it's just, a walk in the park, a box of fluffy ducks, a duck-billed platypus, whatever the fuck, right? Mm-hmm. But what you are doing is just reducing your risk. You are doing it the smart way. You are working, not shooting. Working is still dangerous, but it's the smartest way to get across what you want to do, whereas shooting is just taking a blunt instrument and just hitting somebody overhead with it as hard as you fucking can. There's a difference. And there's a lot of it goes back to the carnivals. I mean, all the carnival games were set up, the fucking lead in the bottom of the milk bottle you can't knock over, or the whatever the fuck. There were ways that they gimmicked things to prevent people from winning shit. Well, there's also then ways that you can gimmick shit to do it and impress people. Do you think there's tricks to every old strongman trick? There's a technique to tearing a phone book in half. But just because you know that technique doesn't mean you can tear a phone book in half unless you're a fucking strongman. So when Joe LeDuc did his bear hug challenge, where he would get in the middle of the ring and lock his hands together in a bear hug grip, and he would have 5 men from the audience on each side, not just 5 together, 5 men on each side with a leather strap tied to his biceps. And they would have 10 seconds to pull his grip apart, right? Well, they couldn't do it. One time he did it in Tupelo so they could tape it and show it on Memphis TV, and the leather strap broke before his grip did. The guys were there was a bunch of rednecks from Tupelo pulling their ass off. But you couldn't just do it if you were fucking Casper Milquetoast from down the street, but because Joe LeDuc was fucking enormously strong anyway. The point is that with the way that it was set up with the leather straps on his biceps, what is it, physics, the way that they were pulling the grip, he could get the best grip to resist. If the straps had been on his wrists or, whatever the fuck, it's a thing. So you can resist that for 10 seconds if you're a Superman. Another thing he did, I did this with Bruiser Bedlam. Ken Patera had done this. The holding the car back with your legs, right? You put your back against a concrete wall and your legs on the front bumper of a vehicle, and somebody accelerates the vehicle until the tires are spinning and your legs are holding it, right? You've seen that. As a matter of fact, Les Thatcher did it with Joe LeDuc in Knoxville because Les was a race car driver and they didn't want some fucking idiot, because there's a trick to this. I'll tell this because nobody's going to do this. If you do, send me video because I want to see you fucking squash yourself. But you find not a gravel area or one of the rough type of asphalt finishes, but you find one of those slicker asphalt or concrete finishes where it's slick. And if it's a fucking rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, wherever the power is, you spray that fucking STP spray on the slick concrete. It'll make the tires spin. But you're still holding the fucking accelerating car back with your legs and your back against a fucking concrete wall. Do you want to do that, Brian, now that you know the trick?
No.
Exactly. So in some cases, it's not as extreme as those, but I don't like to tell all the tricks because then everybody knows enough already. Now, the guys, when I do these things, the guys are fucking fooled. So I don't want the fans to know everything. When I was in MLW last year and they asked me to produce, they had the, anything goes fight in the building with the Von Erichs and Lawler and the Contra unit. And one of the ring crew guys said, "What do you want me to go Home Depot? There's an anything goes match and get to tables and, chairs or, ladders or whatever." I said, "No." I said, "Here's what I need. I need one metal folding chair, a 3-foot long pine board with no knot holes, a flathead screwdriver, a ball peen hammer, a roll of duct tape, a roll of athletic tape, 3/4, a pocket knife, a large cup of water, and a triple cheese from Wendy's. The last one is for me while I fix all this other stuff up."
Of course.
And we had a match where one guy got a board broken over his head and one guy got duct taped to the fucking ring post while the heels got heat on the partners, but the fucking extra ring crew guy came out with a pocket knife and cut him loose in the nick of time. And the fucking Jacob Fatu, the Samoan beast, got a beer thrown in his face and blinded. And one guy got hit with a chair one time. And everything registered and everything meant something. Nobody got hurt. I've been in places where they actually, I've told the story where Bruiser Bedlam wanted to really break the beer bottle over his head in the promo when he was going to have the match with Randy Savage. I've explained about the bottles then because that was part of that story. He was going to just break the fucking bottle over his head. And he did it about 4 or 5 times to himself and actually busted himself open. "Jimmy, the bottle won't break." So finally I said, "Bruiser," he said, "it must be thinner in Canada. I do this in the bars all the time." I said, "You're not drunk now. That may be one thing it has to do with it." But we baked the bottle. You just bake the bottle, get it good and hot, and then take the fucking very top of it with a rag or something and dip it in cold water, and the glass cracks but doesn't fall apart if you do it right. You really got to be careful. And then you set it in the fucking carrier thing and you baby it until it's time, and then when you hit somebody with it, it's going to shatter. But it's still real glass. When they started using this fucking movie glass, the sugar glass shit, I hated that. Because not only can it expose the business where the pieces fly and somebody picks it up and it crumbles, but also in a lot of cases, unless you're careful with it and know what you're doing, it's more dangerous than the glass because it'll grind into powder and get in your eyes and shit. It just powderizes. So anyway, whatever you did, you always wanted people to, if they pick up a piece of a board, it's a real board. If they pick up a piece of glass, it's a real glass. If they pick up knucks, if you let knucks go out into people, they better be real and you better been working with them. Because if you've got gimmick knucks and they go out into people, you're fucked. But then I've told a story of how a number of times, famously in the Heavenly Bodies and the Bruise Brothers match, Ron and Don Harris in Johnson City, I had a real slapjack and a gimmick slapjack. We used the gimmick one, and then I switched it and threw the real one out in the crowd so they'd go, oh, my God. But the Harris boys didn't know, and they thought I'd thrown the real or the fake one out there, so they went and got the fucking gimmick slapjack, but it was the real one, and they came in and started to use it. I said, no, we're all running from them. No. It's sleight of hand. It's fixing things. It's gimmicking with things. It's giving yourself an advantage. It's doing tricks that punching a. I can show the average person how to take their bare hand and punch a 10-penny nail through a fucking board all the way through where you can shred paper on the other side. Makes you look like a fucking strong man. You got to have a pretty good punch to be able to do it. But a guy like a Bruiser Bedlam I've done it with, or Mark Henry I've done it with, or goddamn the Punisher and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Barry Buchanan I've done it with. You can have them, you can fix it, and you can show them the technique where they can just take a 10-penny nail in their fist and punch it repeatedly through a board, just like you're punching a goddamn paper clip through a sheet of paper. They're all real things. They've just been modified. And it's technique. And so when I started in the Gabe Sapolsky went nuts one time at a Ring of Honor show in like 2006 because I was showing the guys how to not actually hit each other over the head with a board and try to break it from scratch and on purpose. And the guys were like, oh, we didn't know. They just somehow in that lost generation we had in wrestling, and they watched ECW shows, they just started hitting each other with implements over the head for real without a technique to it. That, to me, never made a lot of fucking sense.
That was the ECW credo.
And I didn't invent this shit. The first time when I learned from Bill Dundee how to fix a board, and they've never failed me. I've done dozens of them. Have never failed, and it gets a huge pop. But first time I saw it, I'm like, what the fuck? It was in Chattanooga. Actually, it wasn't the first time I saw it. It was the first time I was involved in it. First time I saw it, I said, oh, shit. They broke that board over that fucking guy's head. But the first time I was involved in it was in Chattanooga when the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Terry Taylor, jumped the Angel and the Bounty Hunter and came in the front door and attacked them to get even and broke boards over their head. But the problem was Bobby Fulton knew what to do. Because even if the board has been modified, you have to hit your victim straight over the head in the right place, not as hard as you can attempting to cause brain trauma, but literally hard, and it'll work and nobody will get hurt. Bobby Fulton did that. Terry Taylor had Frank Morrell, and he was trying not to hurt Frank, so he was hitting him with working shots. The board wasn't breaking, but Frank's head was knotting up. And finally, he snatched Terry by the throat. He said, God damn it, if you don't hit me hard, I'm going to rip your fucking nuts off. Bam! So anyway, and then we did the same thing the next year in Houston. My God, you should have seen the people. We had Magnum TA in Wrestling 2 for the Mid-South Tag Team title, and they'd gotten juice on Magnum. He's bleeding, and he's been dumped to the floor. And now the Midnight Express is double teaming Mr. Wrestling 2, and the people in Houston would riot at at a fucking late garbage truck. It didn't matter what the fuck. They just wanted to riot, so they're already getting up. And goddamn Magnum TA gets up and sees his partner getting double teamed and turns around and walks down the aisle and leaves. Does the old cowboy Bob Ellis bloody dead man walk through the people. He's leaving. What the fuck? And now the people are bullshit. It's 2-on-1, 3-on-1 with the managers keeping the referee at bay. And all of a sudden, here comes Magnum back down the aisleway with a goddamn board. And he gets in the ring, and Bobby Eaton turns around, and he hit Bobby Eaton over the top of the head with that board, and it broke in half, and splinters and pieces flew up in the air. And I've never heard 11,000 people come all at the same time before. Wah! And then the day was saved, and holy shit, and then we ran, and they chased us, and my God, it was hot. One shot. Nobody got hurt. Made the fucking point of the whole deal. Or we could have gone out there and drug everything out from under the ring they've got in Home Depot and hit everybody 1,000,000 times with everything and then fallen off a fucking ladder at the end of it. And they'd have been sitting there going, I wonder what time the fucking bus leaves for home. But anyway.
Let's get a few more questions in, and then we'll play a few songs and wrap things up here, Jim. This was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from James Seelig. I wanted to get your opinion on where you place the Road Warriors amongst the greatest tag teams in wrestling history.
Okay, well, at least shorten to the point. Are you sure that wasn't Charlie from Starkville under an assumed name?
I'm pretty positive of it, yes.
Well, I mean, they're high up there. Here's the thing. I don't even want anybody to think I'm criticizing them, but there's positives and negatives to how far they rank in terms of all-time teams. There's only been really one tag team in wrestling history that has been the top box office attraction in the business over every other single individual person in wrestling, and that was Rocca and Perez in 59 and 60. And that was because of Rocca and New York. The Road Warriors are probably as close to as any other tag team has ever come to being the top box office attraction in the business since then. The Rock and Roll Express was incredibly hot for a period of time. Obviously, the Midnight Express was hot for a period of time. The Road Warriors, it was a phenomenon for the first, 5 years. And just if they were on the card and the Road Warrior pops, and it was just, they were so over that for that alone, they place way up there. Were they Bockwinkel and Stevens in the ring as far as performers? No, and they never would have said that. But at the same time, they were the best. They were the two best guys in the business to be who they were supposed to be. They pulled the Road Warrior gimmick off perfectly. So while they worked exactly like the Road Warriors should work, they were green at the start, then they kind of picked up on things, but they weren't as hard to work with as everybody thinks, as I've said before. So while they weren't, the second coming of Ricky Steamboat as far as smooth workers, they worked exactly like the Road Warriors should have. They looked exactly like the Road Warriors should have. They talked exactly like the Road Warriors should have, and they fucking drew huge money until WCW got fucked up. Nobody was drawing money, and then they went to the WWF, and they never got them there. Never got them. Vince never got the whole thing. They were. The Dark Side of the Ring episode pointed out in a lot of cases they were just too cleaned up. You could see it. They were just too cleaned. The whole thing was just too cleaned up, and they made them too entertaining, and put too much entertainment around them in the WWF. But for those 5 years, they were more over than almost any tag team ever has been, and a fucking phenomenon. So they're, you would think they'd be top 5 of all time.
Our next question was sent in to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Jordan. Big fan of your podcast. I've got a question about a clip I saw from Monday Night Raw. Seth Rollins teamed up with Murphy to take on Rey Mysterio Jr. and Aleister Black in the
hey, by the way, that's another reason why I didn't want the household to be losing that fucking 7 figures of income over the next year. Because have you ever heard of a fucking top guy with a fucking stooge named Murphy? I mean, they're fucking mixing poor Seth in with the goddamn, the bench, and he may be looking for that income soon.
In the match, Seth got DQ'd after knocking Rey off the apron, which I found a little odd.
What?
Brian Alvarez explained, quote, "There is, in fact, a secret rule. It's a Vince McMahon rule. In a tag team match, You know how that you tag and there's 5 seconds where you could both be in the ring at the same time, right? If I tag you for 5 seconds, we can both be in the ring as the referee counts to 5. However, outside of those 5 seconds, if you are not the legal man, you cannot touch the other team's legal man. Vince is adamant that this be enforced. If you are legal, you are allowed to hit the other team's illegal man, but the illegal man cannot touch the legal man. So Ray, because he's legal, is allowed to hit Seth on the apron, but Seth on the apron is not allowed to hit Ray. Seth can hit Alistair because they are both illegal. Legal can hit illegal. Illegal cannot hit legal.
Oh, for fuck. All right.
But illegal can hit illegal. And that's the end of the quote. And to the point, what are your thoughts on it? Was this always a thing? Is Vince McMahon out of touch? Why am I even watching this? Should I end it all? Well,
yes.
Jesus Christ, that's a good time
yes.
at the end.
Yes. We should end this question at least. All I've got to say is I not only managed the Heavenly Bodies in the WWF, I managed the WWF Tag Team Champions. I was an agent and producer for many tag team matches. I've never heard such a crock of horse shit in my life as what I just heard there. I'm not saying it's not a thing. I don't know what people have done in the last intervening years, but in the time that I served there in those capacities, I never heard such a thing. And where do I even start? They ought to have more rules to worry about than that one, and I didn't even get what the fuck it was. If you're a legal man and you hit the illegal guy, that happens constantly in a tag team match, especially in a good one, in a variety of circumstances. So that would have happened numerous times in every match that I've ever been involved in, I think. I don't know what the fuck that whole thing is.
Obviously, Vince has a lot of weird little rules, and every now and then they just pop up.
But here's the in some cases, and I've heard him say a few things. Well, he always used to hate it when a guy would be in the corner and be being choked. Like you'd have your hands around a guy's neck choking him, and the guy in the corner would have his hands sitting on the top ropes. Or the same thing, he's in the corner getting punched, and he's got his hands sitting on the top ropes. No, you'd either be trying to pull the fucking hands from around your neck or trying to block the punches or whatever. And he used to say that all the time, and I got that, and that made a lot of sense. And there were other little picadillos he had. Every once in a while, he'd say something in a meeting, but I think what happens now is there's somebody that's been dedicated to just sit down, and every time Vince just says something out of his ass that he might not even think about again ever in his life, somebody writes it down and adds it to the official canon of things that you're not allowed to do around Vince. And it takes on a life of its own. Because there's a lot of times he'd say little things. I don't even remember what the topic was, but just that he'd say little things that if you did write that down and say, okay, this is the rule going forward, you would have ended up with a lot of stupid fucking rules. But we didn't take it that seriously back then. So I don't know what this is about that you just quoted me there.
Okay, our next question, Jim, sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Adam in Dallas. Did you have a chance to meet Little Richard at WrestleMania 10? Were you a Little Richard fan?
Yeah, I was a Little Richard fan. Once again, I didn't meet Little Richard. Besides the fact that in those days, as I said, I was, just coming up and guest starring. I, didn't think that was the time to be going up meeting celebrities. When we did the Bad Blood pay-per-view in St. Louis, and Thez and Kaniski and Dory and Terry and Muchnick and Jack Briscoe and everybody was there. Yes, I went around and got my autographs and took the picture and did the whole 9 yards, because when are you going to get that chance again? But yes, I was a fan of Little Richard Tutti Frutti, okay, but I wasn't going to go up and fawn over him at the pay-per-view that I was a guest at. And later on when I was in the office, I remember I slid up next to fucking Pamela Anderson that one time she was there just so I could look down the cleavage and everything and get a good look. And I looked her in the eye for about 3 seconds. She looked like she didn't know whether she was on fucking Neptune or in New Haven. But I've never been a big, the big celebrity thing. It was cool. They brought Ken Osmond from Leave It to Beaver in to do that first Clash of Champions because they had the new Leave It to Beaver on TBS and had me do the interview with him. The two famous Mama's Boys, prick, obnoxious kids. That was a hoot. What
a judging panel that was. Ken Osmond, Jason Hervey, a Penthouse Pet, Sandy Scott, Gary Juster.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're not ribbing. They had judges for the world title match between Ric Flair and Sting at the First Clash Champions in Greensboro. The judges were as you mentioned, a Penthouse Pet, Jason Hervey, Sandy Scott, and Gary Juster. And somebody just sent me a screen grab, or just didn't send it to me, tweeted it out or whatever. I think they even fucked up the graphic. And instead of when they had Sandy Scott, they had like whatever, twat face McGee, whatever the Penthouse Pet's name was, right? Penthouse Pet was her graphic. And then Sandy Scott's was supposed to be former wrestling great, but it said former wrestling great pet. So, live television in those days, folks. But anyway, but yeah, no, I just never did the whole celebrity thing at the show. We're busy. They're busy. Everybody's busy.
A couple more questions, Jim. This one has been sent in by several people. What are your thoughts about the WWE and specifically NXT bringing back In Your House as an event?
Well, I didn't know. Are they going to, or what do I think about? Should I campaign for them to do so?
NXT is going to be having In Your House.
Well, but in this case, they're actually going to travel across the country and do the match in everybody's house individually because of the social distancing. They can't. I understood the concept. The concept was explained to us when they started the In Your House pay-per-views in 95, that instead of the big four, now we're going to do a pay-per-view once a month. But the thought was if we do one once a month and charge full price, then we'll burn out the big matches and burn out the big shows and also burn out the people's resources. That's why Vince had the idea to do a shorter pay-per-view at a lower price with matches that had been built to, but at the same time not goddamn Steve Austin versus The Rock at the Astrodome. And that was the concept until they realized that that was fine for 1995 because business sucked. But then WCW started doing more full-fledged pay-per-views, and then business started picking up for wrestling in general. And then they figured, well, fuck, now we're costing ourselves money. We'll just go ahead and charge full price for all of them. And then the In Your House slowly faded away. But I remember there were a lot of wrestlers pissed at the first In Your House because some fan was going to win an actual house. Remember, that was the gimmick. They were going to call up and whoever they called would win a house that they had purchased somewhere. They could do whatever the fuck they went to with it. Probably turned into a goddamn crack house or whatever. But because in 95, even the champion, nobody was making a ton of money relative to the overall scheme of things in the WWF. So there was nobody on that card, even in the main event. I guess Diesel was the champion then. Nobody was going to make a payoff equivalent to the money that fucking fan was going to get. And they were hot. But then later on, they stopped giving away houses and started paying better. And then it was a better paying proposition a few years later to be on pay-per-view. But yeah, that's what it was. And I mean, what is In Your House now? It's a name that they had and they had a trademark on or whatever, but it's not going to be any different. Right now, it's going to be a match in front of very few, if any, people, no matter how they fucking spin it. Would it not be?
It will be at Full Sail, and I believe they're doing it, and I could be wrong, because it's the 25th anniversary of the initial In Your House pay-per-view.
Okay, so maybe they'll just do it one time. I thought you meant they were bringing back an In Your House pay-per-view series or something. Well, still, it's not in your fucking house, unless they're going to give away a house. It doesn't really have anything to fucking do with In Your House anymore.
Wasn't it the case? I mean, maybe I'm getting this wrong. I haven't thought about this in a while, where, Vince's idea was that we do these budget pay-per-views in between the big pay-per-views. It'll get more people to purchase it. But didn't the actual opposite really work, where, and And I guess it was Bischoff who said, let's just start doing more regular pay-per-views at regular price. And people wouldn't think of it as a budget pay-per-view, and they'll buy it. And that ended up working.
I believe that's what I basically stated just shortly ago, that WCW started doing more at regular price, and it didn't hurt them a bit. And actually, it did the opposite when people said, well, that's only the fucking $19.99 show. We'll wait till it's the $39.99 show or whatever, which is fucking stupid. Still going to be a wrestling show, whatever the fuck. But anyway... But yeah, so they just said, fuck it, we'll just go, instead of 2 hours, we'll just do the 3 hours, and we'll just charge full price 12 times a year. And that worked. But in 1995, I don't think it would have worked for either company. I really don't. Because there was not a lot of fucking good wrestling, nor people wanting to see any more of what they were seeing.
All right, our final question this week on the show, Jim, sent into CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jesse Bowman. My name is Jesse. I've been a fan of yours for many years. While I don't necessarily agree with you on everything, I have always respected you for your intelligence and willingness to voice your opinions. It takes a certain amount of courage to voice one's opinion, even when such thoughts are unpopular. And while you are not the toughest individual in the world, your mental toughness makes up for that you lack.
Wait a minute. What the hell? Get to the point here.
Lastly, I have come across individuals who have stated that Otis, whom I know you despise, is like a modern-day Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, God.
I think these people are idiots, but perhaps I am wrong in this assertion. They tell me that he is an everyman who clicks with the crowd.
Oh, God.
That his fat ass, hip-shaking, mumbling awkwardness, all of these things click with them. I don't get it. Dusty Rhodes, whom I was never really a fan of, I was more of a Roddy Piper and Kurt Angle guy, had charisma and a certain coolness to him, but to me, Otis just comes across as a fat dork who is best regaled to underneath comedy roles. Am I out of touch in this? It does seem like he's getting over, but I truly don't get it. Any thoughts you might have on this are greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Well, no, you're not nuts. You're actually probably the only sane one. I don't know who the fuck came up with that comparison, but that's farther off than the fucking Balding Bucks and the Midnight Express. You're right. He's a fat, not only, here's the thing. I'm not downing him because he's fat, but since he is fat and also a goof, he's a fat underneath clown goof that they're presenting as an idiot that mumbles and is a fucking object of ridicule. He's not every man. He's a goof, and he's being presented as a goof. And actually, if you want to get a goof over, as they showed with Eugene, the only time that the goof gets over is when the goof outsmarts all the fucking supposed smart people. And Otis ain't doing it. He just gets shit falling in his lap. But no, Dusty Rhodes, one of the greatest communicators of all time, being compared to a guy who mumbles. Dusty Rhodes, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, being compared to another guy just because they're both fat. There's no similarity whatsoever, and no similarity in the way that he's being presented as what got Dusty Rhodes over as a main event fucking superstar. There's no similarity in the performance. There's no similarity in the appearance. There's no similarity, period. It's manufactured similarity. Or maybe that's how they told him, and maybe how they sold it to him to tell him how to act goofy. Well, you'll be like Dusty. I don't have any idea where that comes from. That's ridiculous.
And I believe he has a legit amateur pedigree. I think he's a Jerry Briscoe guy that they've just decided to make into a goofy character.
Well, there you go. Okay, then, because Dusty couldn't have fucking shot wrestled his way out of a fucking paper bag, but he was a hell of a baseball player. But so there's no similarity there either.
So Otis, not the new Dusty Rhodes.
No. And boy, Dusty Rhodes ain't the old Otis either.
I kind of hate it when people make comparisons about wrestlers from yesterday to wrestlers of today, just because it really is hard to do. Everything is so radically different.
Well, but also when they've never seen someone, except on video, and when they weren't actually there, don't know how they were presented to people or how the people thought of them, and then they just try to make comparisons because somebody else said it on Twitter.
All right, well.
You know what? It brought up something that I forgot. I didn't do the fucking Cornette's Collectibles update at the beginning of this program. Well, and now people are just going to be all verklempt. when he talked about buying merchandise, even though I'd probably cuss him if he did so. So I must do that here shortly.
There's no time like the present. We'll get there in a moment, of course. Thank you all for listening. You can send in your questions and musical submissions to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. Please, if you're going to send in a musical submission, send in an unlisted YouTube link or an MP3. That is our preferred way of receiving your wonderful songs. And what a great batch of songs we had this week on the show. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Super Podcast, 605pod.com, available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget about patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to the archives of the experience and the drive-thru with a new batch of shows going up each and every Sunday evening. Only $5 a month gets you in the door. So much content, including a few watch-alongs and more content to come. Patreon.com/Cornette. And thank you so much to everyone that has already signed up. We really do appreciate it. Also, don't forget the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, tinyurl.com/official Corny YouTube, or just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette for access to full shows, clips of shows, omnibus collections, and of course the amazing exclusive Travis Heckel artwork. It gets better each and every week. Great stuff by Travis. Check it out today, and thank you. As Jim said earlier, we are just around 125,000 subscribers now, marching towards 1 million. Be a part of the Cult of Cornette, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel.
Boy, if we're marching to 1 million from 125,000, I hope I packed an extra canteen.
Well, maybe you can get a canteen at Cornette's Collectibles. What's going on at Cornette's Collectibles,
Yes,
Jim?
the new Cornette's Collectibles canteen will be available. No, our long national nightmare is finally almost over with. What is today? Monday, May 18th. As of this point, in the month of April, as you know, folks, we had almost 2,000 individual orders for over 7,000 individual items, and it blew the fucking infrastructure up. So we have battled back and come out of the hole on this thing, and as of Monday, May 18th, there are about with what went out this morning, there are about another 60 or so domestic packages that will be headed out Tuesday and Wednesday, including the folks who have ordered those custom-made Mid-Atlantic DVD sets. Those pesky little things take so long. And we still have almost 100 internationals that will be going out every day until we get them done over the next week or so. And we're accepting new orders as of Monday, May 18th at jimcornette.com. That we are encouraging you to allow at least 2 weeks for delivery for, because I got to have some type of respite here. And this has been, it's been logistically challenging, but nothing is in danger of selling out this week on the website. Everything that's going to sell out sold out before. We've taken it down. We've restocked everything we can restock. So move slowly and calmly to your computers if you'd like to buy some of the fine quality merchandise at jimcornette.com. And from now on, let's just assume, although I'll try to beat that, let's assume it's going to take a couple weeks to get it turned around to you. And now every goddamn body and their brother is going to order something all at the same time and blow me up again. That'll serve me right. All these people that hate me, that want to get rid of me, they're trying to kill me by sending me money. And I take in so much money that it puts me out of business. Well, I bet you it won't work, folks. You can try it all you want, but it won't work. You just keep sending me money. I still won't go away, but you can try.
Of course, the drive-thru is sponsored by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until Friday on The Experience, and next week right here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!